Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel, Nate here, and today we're going to jump back into Vital. As I said in the previous overview that we did for the new Vital Wavetable Synth, I wanted to do a video just taking a look at some of the wavetable editing options, because there's some pretty cool, interesting things in this and very intuitive way of working with wavetables. So I've had a little time to play around with this. We're going to dive in and we're going to just check out a few of these features. Right, here we go. So we've got a initialized patch here, and we're just going to dive into the Wavetable Editor. We're going to take a look at the basics first and then add a couple of different things that you can do. So you've got a number of different, or three different wave sources that you can use, and they all come with different means for editing wavetables. So the default one in the initialized patch is very similar to Serum. You can do sort of free-form drawing at a spectral level on your waveform, like this. Dialing up the grid makes it a little easier to control what you're doing, as it will snap to these cross points here that you have. So you can draw sort of straight lines in and create slightly more controlled shapes with your mouse. And this mode also gives you access to the, I'm just going to create an even number here. It also gives you access to the sort of additive synth capabilities that this has as well, whereby you can actually modify the harmonics. You've got two different display modes for that, the power scale and the amplitude scale. We'll just leave that as a default for now. And you can see the first one, as we pull that up, we start adding in the first harmonic, which is the fundamental. It's a sine wave, and we can also adjust the phase of said sine wave down at the bottom here, and then start adding in different harmonics, adjust the phase of the harmonics as well. And you can edit it this way, kind of give you can get some sort of organy tones, additive kind of sounds. Saw wave would be something along those lines normally. There we go, close to a saw. So that's the one way to work with it. I don't work much like this. Even with Serum, I normally import audio files, do my wavetable editing outside of that, and then bring it in. But this is here for you if you want to do it this way. Now you've got these different layers here. We're just going to remove this group and we'll add another source. We're going to look at the line source next. So this is very similar to Zebra's Wavetable Editor or Oscillator Editor. Whereby this one, you also have a grid, which we'll disable first, and we'll just use it in sort of freeform mode. This one lets you edit things with nodes and curves, very much the same as Zebra or Sonic Academy's node, for example, as well. We can do curved stuff here. We can add in new nodes. And remove these points as we see fit. So let's just go back to our saw wave. In actual fact, we'll dial up our, we'll dial in a grid. We'll just do sort of 4 segments like this, and we're going to use 2, 3 Y, 4. Let's use 4 Y values as well. I'm going to just draw in a square wave here, just to illustrate how the keyframes work. So all of the lines, or all of these sources, can be animated with keyframes. And this is, if you've ever used a sort of video editing program or animation software, it's very much the same thing, whereby you can double click and drop in a keyframe. If you have this keyframe selected, we have our pulse wave or our square wave. And we can jump over to our final keyframe that we have down here. Let's move this one, the playhead, all the way over. This is also coincidentally the start point for the wavetable as well. And let's adjust the pulse width. We'll just bring this one, maybe actually bring this up to about 8. We'll adjust this so that we have a much narrower pulse width now. And watch what happens when we move the playhead back again. Now take a listen to what's happening to this waveform. If we click off there, we can kind of see the animation occurring. So now we have sort of pulse width modulation in a wavetable format. So this is incredibly handy for more simple waves. You can also kind of get quite creative with this when you start adding in a bunch more nodes. We can kind of do a little bit more detail on this. And then again, just jump into this one. You'll see all of the nodes are there. This is interesting. You'll see it morph quite a bit more with all these extra nodes. We can kind of I'm just randomly kind of experimenting here. Let's do something like that. And just take a look at it, the morphing again. Cool. So that's the line source. And then the last one is the audio source, which is going to allow us to bring audio content or audio files into Vital for processing into a wavetable. So we'll remove this one again, and we'll just add an audio file source. Now this is drag and drop. You can just drag something in here. I'm first going to just show you how to do single cycle stuff. I have a single cycle of a IntelliGel Rubicon oscillator at C0. I always kind of sample them lower down so you don't get so much sort of muffling of the sound when you bring it into the wavetable. It's always a good idea to have longer cycles between the waves, and if you do that at a low note, you're going to get a much longer waveform that you can then bring in as a single cycle. So you'll have sort of slightly more better definition. So let's, I'm actually just going to bring this into Wavelab as well. Just bring that up, and we've got our single cycle there. So this is the IntelliGel Rubicon saw wave. So we've got our single cycle now, and you'll see the default window size is 2048 samples, but you can see our waveform ends prematurely. Now the window size is the amount of samples for this cycle, and we can change that over here. So what you're going to want to do is have something on hand like Wavelab, for example, where I can select our file here and get a sample readout. So if I have this set to samples, you can see down here now it's reading 1,351 samples for this waveform cycle. If we jump back to Keybase, set this to 1,351, and our cycle should be correct now. That sounds a bit better now. We can play around with the window size. If I drop this down to 800, for example, see we're losing half the wave. We'll drop that up to, bump that up to 3,000. See, it becomes a lot thinner now. So you want to try and get a single cycle to the length of the actual waveform. Cool. So now I'm going to bring in something with a little bit of movement, and then we can do that from the Wavetable Editor where we were now by bringing. I've got a formant sweep from a braids module. You'll see what we've got now. It brings in the audio. We can select the scan through the actual audio file here. Select the blending mode, for example, as well. Choose something like the spectral or the file blend. That's all good and well, but now you've actually got to go and drop in the keyframe again, and then on this keyframe choose the end of that to get that sweep. There is a quicker way to do this though. If we just get out of the Wavetable Editor, what you can do is just grab that braids formant wave that we had, drag it straight onto the oscillator, and then just select Wavetable, and that will do that automatically for you. If we hold down the key now, we might need to just go and edit a few things here. We can choose the file blend maybe again, and let's also just change our window size slightly. Let's just bump this up to maybe 4096. We'll double it. That's going to pitch it up slightly. If we half it, so from 2048, let's go to 1024 and see what we get. That's a little bit better for me. You can adjust the fades for this. So you're going to get a slightly smoother transition if you have the fades enabled. Then we can also normalize the waveform as well. Phase style, we have clear. You'll see how it maintains the phase there. And then the vocode as well, which is coincidentally the phase style that it uses for the text to wavetable feature as well. So anyways, now we have a wavetable in here. Not the smoothest transition that we have there, but a little bit of work with setting up the cycles a little bit better will net you better results. Now, one of the interesting things with this wavetable editing is that you can actually stack stuff together. So we've looked at all three of these sources now. I'm going to add a line source on top of this one and sort of layer them up. And we can add in a keyframe for this one, and let's change this waveform a little bit. So we've got some layered stuff going on. And then we can also add modifiers. There's a bunch of really cool stuff in here, especially the wave folder I really like. And let's animate the wave folder as well. So we'll head over to that keyframe and adjust the multiplication for that. So that's a really nice feature, which I haven't seen before, the ability to actually stack sources on top of one another, which is really nice. So now I wanted to look at another cool little trick here. There's two ways to kind of create sources with multiple different waveforms in them. Let's just start fresh again, and I want to just show you how to do sort of fades between different sources that you're using for the wavetables. We'll just initialize this whole preset again. Let's jump into our wavetable editor. I would have really liked to seen them add a volume modifier here to kind of create blends with a little bit more detail. Let's add in a audio file source here, and we'll just drag in a sample. Just hit normalize. And let's say we want to kind of blend this together with something completely different, like the braids formant. So we'll just add in another audio file source, and this one will bring in that formant sample. So now they have both of them layered together. What we can do is add in two keyframes here, and we're going to use a modifier here. We're going to use the wave warp modifier, and I'm just going to use the Y warp for this. So if you max this out, it'll actually zero the wave, basically. The sort of amplitude of it, we'll do a wave warp on this one, and this one will leave it 0. And we'll add in two more keyframes here. This one we will bring our Y warp back down to 0 again, and this one we'll do all the way up to 20. So now we're essentially getting a fade between the saw wave that I brought in and the vocoder, or the formant that I had initially. So we're going to fade from this one to this one, which is really cool. So now we've got a fade from one audio source to another audio source inside of our wavetable. But there's another way that we can do this as well, and this is a really cool little feature. I believe Serum can do this as well. For creating sort of complex wavetables from stuff that you already have. You can kind of remix wavetables. So one way to do this is to, let's just grab one of the wavetables that comes with this. And let's add in a second oscillator here. We'll grab a totally different wavetable now. Let's do that harmonic series because you're really going to kind of hear the difference there. Okay, so now we can use a bit of modulation here. We'll just set up to our LFO as a envelope. And let's just assign this one to, we'll set this to 2 maybe. I'm not sure exactly what the 100% what the length of time is that this samples when we do what we're about to do. But we'll set this one to play. And let's maybe just add in some movement as well to that wavetable. Cool, and we'll do exactly the opposite now with the LFO2. Let's drag this onto our level as well. So this one is going to be coming up now from nothing. We'll set this to envelope again and again to 2. And let's do the same, we'll add this to our wavetable index as well. So look what happens now. We've got this one starting at full volume, coming down and then fading into this one, and at the same time also the wavetable index is moving around. Let's take a listen to what we get. Cool, that's pretty interesting. So now what we can do is just, we'll turn this one on and right click and say, well, let's turn that off actually. We'll right click and say on this third oscillator, resynthesize preset to wavetable. So there we go. It's done that little automation thing that we did. We can disable these 2 oscillators now and take a listen to the wavetable that we left with. So essentially it's rendered a section of audio from that, and it's then imported into our third oscillator as a new remixed wavetable, which is super cool. You can get some really interesting stuff, which we can obviously go and edit further now as well if we'd like. It's now a audio file. We can go and add modifiers to this if we wish. We can play around with frequency shifting. We've got various different things like a comb filter that you can apply to this as well. Let's add in a keyframe here and adjust our comb filter for this. Awesome, very, very, very cool. The last thing I wanted to quickly just look at is I was quite impressed with the length of time that this wavetable oscillator can actually accept as well. So once again, I'm just going to initialize the preset. And I'm going to bring in quite a long audio file. So I've got a sort of bell sound that I rendered out of Chromophone 3, which I'm hopefully going to cover soon on the channel as well. There's quite a lot of notes in there. I'm going to bring that whole thing as a wavetable. We'll just do this again. We'll drop it in. Let's actually see the pitch slice, what that does. So you can see you can get almost sort of sample playback-esque effects. We'll try that just with the standard wavetable as well. Wavetable. Actually getting really good results from the pitch splicing. Cool, and let's just play around with this now. It's a bit less wavetable-y, and you can actually almost hear the transients and stuff from the bells as it sweeps through those. And you see it's done the modifiers for us, or the keyframes again for us. Let's assign an LFO to this. Really like those kind of reversed bits. We can even do that. Or even do them reversed and going forward if we bump that into stereo. So some very simple stuff going on there, but yeah, incredibly cool for sound design. These sort of long audio files that you can bring in. Yeah, and then also the text-to-speech. Obviously, don't forget that it's bringing, or text-to-wavetable. Don't forget that it's bringing that in as a wavetable as well. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can do with that as well, instead of these usual sort of making funny phrases with this. I mean, we can do complete gibberish as well. Do things like we'll just use vowels, for example. And let's do, let's just go with something random. We'll just do Italian and enter. We'll just take off some of our take a listen to our wavetable now. And of course we can jump in and edit this because it is a wavetable, so we can add modifiers to this again. Let's maybe use the wave folder. And on this one, we're just going to adjust the end time so that we don't have that empty section at the end. Let me change the phase style as well. Cool. And let's take a listen to what we have now. Our matrix, we'll just put our LFO back in there. That's pretty crazy, and that's from the text-to-speech or the text-to-wavetable, just using it in a slightly different way and modifying it with the wave folder inside of the Wavetable Editor. Now again, I'm going to cut this video short there. That's a couple of little cool tricks that you can do with this. I mean, the world is your oyster here, though. This is incredibly flexible. This, coupled with just sort of basic sample editor, will get you really far and give you some really interesting ideas. And yeah, like that remix feature, I really like. And I should say as well that the remix feature actually applies to everything within the presets. So not just the fades that we were creating. We can take an entire preset, like let's just look for one of these sequence ones. Let's go this AIO sequence. This is such a great sounding preset, this. And we'll right click, say resynthesize preset to wavetable once again. And let's just take a listen to this. We'll just turn off all our modulation quickly. So we're listening to just the, we'll turn off the filters as well. We're listening to just the wavetable now. Just assign a new LFO to this one, so we can just sweep through it slowly. There you have it. So it's not exactly the same, but obviously because it's being pulled into a wavetable, but it's got that same feeling to it and same sort of tones in it. And now we can actually take things further as well with the spectral processing. If we find something we like there, we can then choose to remix it again if we want. And there we have it. Now a completely new one generated from the one that we generated from the whole preset to begin with. And let's bring that up. Cool. It's really, really clever. The more time I spend with this, the more I'm loving this. And I haven't actually even gone through the manuals or anything yet, so I'm sure there is a couple of really cool little features hiding around in this still too. As I spend more time with this, I guess I will do some more content around this. And hopefully once I kind of get around to setting up the live streams and stuff again, we'll do some sort of preset design and things like that. Cool. Thanks guys for watching. As always, if you guys enjoyed these videos, please make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and the bell notification thing, so that you can stay up to date with when we have new content out. I will catch you guys soon. Cheers.